This is Football at 4.
Hurts gives it off, no fakes. He fires, complete, touchdown, Dallas Goedert, his second of the game.
Great play call. So this play has multiple options. He gives the dive, it's play action. He puts it in the belly of the running back. Nope, I don't want you to have it. He pulls it out. He has the option to keep or throw it to Dallas Goedert.
There you go. Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. That's Merrill Reese on the call on the Dallas Goedert touchdown reception. He had 2 in the game, and both of them pretty well drawn up there. Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by the Fanatic Sportsbook right here at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. And Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. And PhillyVoice.com is back for a Monday edition of Football at 4. 38-20. Probably the most fluid the offense has looked all season, and it happens to come with no A.J. Brown. They had a little bit of something going everywhere. They had 2 running backs going, not just one. They didn't just get Saquon going. They got 2 guys going. They threw it all over the yard. Devontae Smith heavily involved. They had some creative play calls. It looked like there was a rhythm and a reason. Probably the best overall performance offensively of the season.
Oh, without a doubt, it was the best overall performance of the season. And I think what it showed you, and everybody really was, and I was asked about this a lot, so were you, was it Saquon Barkley? Is Saquon Barkley doing something wrong? Is Saquon Barkley not the same guy? Is he hurt? Is he that? Well, no, you could see when you execute blocks like the Eagles did, that it's not just Saquon Barkley who benefited, but so did Tank Bigsby. I mean, you saw the holes. You saw these guys run through them. You saw both of them be able to do what they do best, which is Saquon getting to the second level and then putting the jets on. Bigsby is a hard, powerful runner. You saw him breaking tackles and making contact and dragging guys. And so to me, it's never been about the running back. It's always been about the offensive line and the offensive scheme.
Yeah, so the big run early in the game, that kind of sets the tone because they break that one off. And then it felt like after that, the offensive line just started to get some confidence of like, all right, now we're having some fun. And they just kind of worked off that. But this looked more like the offense from last year where they got the big run and then they were able to work off of it. But what did you take from the passing game, and did it look different? Did it feel different, the passing game? They only threw the ball 20 times, but it seemed like guys were open. There was guys kind of running free in the passing game yesterday.
So the Giants typically play a dime defense. That's where they've played some of their best defense this year. They haven't played great defense, but that's what they do when they get you in a passing But they were without Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland. It's 2 really important players in their secondary. So that forced them to have to play different packages that they weren't used to. And then Cordell Flott, who was an outside corner, who's normally not a starter, had to come out of the game. I'm sorry, he is a starter, but he had to come out of the game. Deonte Banks had to start. Flott came out of the game with an injury. So then they were on like a street free agent corner who got, beat on that the John Dotson touchdown. So they were in a tough bind. So yeah, there were players that were open, and the Eagles took advantage of it. The Eagles were also without A.J. Brown, so they were underhanded. They were shorthanded as well. They did some things differently on offense again to combat to help themselves out and to go against what the Giants were showing on defense. But the only thing that stands out from a negative is that they continue to be a very bad third down offense. And that would be if fixing the run game was number one, and now you're feeling that. Now the next focus should be how do they get better on third down, because they've been so good in the red zone that they've compensated for the fact that they were not very good on third down.
You mentioned these wrinkles, a lot of under center. How has that kind of made adjustments and changed this offense a little bit? The last 2 weeks, they've really kind of gone under center almost exclusively.
No, not exclusively. I mean, they've added it to their offense. I think last week against the Vikings, when they first did it, was about 16 snaps. But if you take away the victory formation and the tush push, it was like, it was about 16, and they may have done it 15, 16 more times. I haven't counted yet. I did last week. So it's a part of their offense that is helping them. And then throwing Fred Johnson in as an extra offensive tackle on about 8 or 10 snaps also helps.
And they've been throwing the ball. They've been throwing the ball with the extra linemen, so that kind of you have to.
Right. You got to mix it up. You can't just if you just run it every time, they're going to know that, right? And the whole point was to diversify your offense. And then I thought they made a concerted effort to get some runs that were, I don't want to call them outside zone, but outside the tackle, off tackle, as opposed to straight inside between the tackles. So that took the pressure off Brett Toth to have to make difficult blocks up the middle, but it took advantage of his athleticism. He's a pretty good athlete. He's played guard and tackle and center. So you saw him get outside and get some lead blocks in the second level on those outside runs. So that was helpful too.
Well, you just said outside runs. That's something we haven't seen a lot of, and I thought they went to the outside, especially with Bigsby. I mean, he ran hard. He's got a little burst, but you saw more outside runs this particular week. Yeah,
and some when you run to the outside, the way the Eagles do it, right, is usually through pin pulls or taking linemen and moving that pulling them is what we call it, right? And maybe it was difficult with Cam Jurgens in there because he just has been dealing with coming back from the back surgery, and of course Landon Dickerson has been banged up. All of them have been banged up a little bit, but I kept telling you, I felt like the more distance we got from some of these injuries, the better it would get. And obviously, this was the week that they felt that they could get that outside run game going, and did.
Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast and Philly Voice looking back at the Eagles' win over the Giants. And some of the things in this game, obviously one big one that wasn't there was A.J. Brown, and he is obviously their biggest play threat, but not having them. Why were they successful without him?
Well, there's a number of factors. I thought the offense, the quarterback was well protected, and if you're well protected and you've got Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith, you still should be able to move the ball. In a lot of the games where they played without A.J. Brown, specifically the Tampa Bay games, they were also dealing with other injuries in those games that either impacted pass protection or impacted the quarterback in some kind of way. But in this case, you're going up again against the Giants defense, missing 2 starters in the secondary. You blocked it up well up front, thanks to A, your running game, and B, pass pro has been pretty good this year anyway. I thought the Giants did a good job of moving Hurts off his mark, but a bad job of even when they spied him, containing his rush. He got out of, they didn't have a disciplined rush, so he was able to make some things happen. And then Devontae Smith's really good. You put him up against anybody, and him and Goddard are gonna get their catches. I think it's okay. Maybe it's politically correct now, where we could say, hey, you know what? When the Eagles get into the red zone, they kind of come up with creative stuff we haven't seen before, especially to Goddard, right? I mean, maybe the offensive coordinator deserves some credit there. I don't know.
I thought the second touchdown to Goddard was a really cool play. I'm not saying it's the most, but it was a really well executed play. We hear Jalen Hurts talk about that a lot. Like, we need to execute better. Sometimes these guys call play, and if we don't execute them, it makes that guy look bad. And that's a play that they executed well. So it's a well-designed, well-called, and well-executed play, and then you see what the result is.
Yeah, so that's a play they've run in the past. They did it against the Steelers last year. They did it against another team. I think maybe even the Giants. It's a run-action play with an RPO tag, meaning the quarterback has 3 different things he can do. He can hand it off to the running back, he can run himself, or he can flip it to Goddard if the defense does what they think it's going to do. And in most cases on that tag, like last year, Hurts, like Goddard would come across the line and Hurts would sort of flick it to him, right? And almost like a shovel pass, and he would pick up extra yards. But Goddard noticed that the linebacker was crashing pretty hard, like he was scraping down really fast. So Goddard just made the decision, I'm going to go vertical. And Hurts saw it and threw it. So instead of a flick, it became an actual, just a pass down that right seam area and turned into a really nice touchdown.
It was, it was a really good play. And you talk about the play caller. We said, anybody who thinks in week 1 you're going to do a better job than you might do in week 17, that's just not realistic. And it seemed that yesterday there was a lot more comfort. There was a lot more flow. There was a lot more fluidity. There was a lot more setting things up. There was a lot more rhyme and reason in the play call. And you're like, hey, maybe this guy's just starting to feel a little bit more, it's just ironic that it happened in a game that A.J. Brown not playing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that, I don't know if they played more freely, because A.J. Brown's a very popular person in that locker room. Maybe Hurts felt a little bit more free, but it's not like he threw the ball all around. I mean, his biggest pass was obviously the one Jahan Dotson, but everything, and he hit Devontae Smith.
He only had
for
20
nice
attempts.
Yeah, he only had 20 attempts. That's my point.
Although the one to Dotson, if you go back and watch that play, Devontae Smith, man, fell, and he was wide open. So you could make a case that he threw it to the wrong guy, even though he ends up making a great throw and Dotson ends up making a great catch on the other side. He could have literally just said, here you go to Smith, because Smith's man fell on the move that Smith put on him. But, yeah, he only threw the ball 20 times. But it just felt like, little inside crossers to Smith. He's wide open catching the ball with space and in front of guys. I mean, it just felt like the amount of room and space that they had in the pass game was something we just haven't seen all year. Everything always just seems like it's got to be the perfect throw or the perfect route. And yesterday it just felt like, hey, look at this. There's space. There's room to roam in the Giants secondary, who, by the way, the Giants secondary stinks.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're without two decent starters in Debo and Holland. Those were two free agent signings that were playing fairly decently for them. I mean, again, they hadn't played great as a defense. I think they were on the field a little bit too much the first 4 weeks. But, yeah, they have some pretty good players on defense that made it a little bit easier with them being out. But, the Giants are going to kick themselves, Mike, because the Eagles – I think we talked about this last week. So we've been saying, can the Eagles continue to be – play offense and get where they want to go? And my response to that has been yes, but only if they have a run game, right? Yeah. And this proved out to be true because, A, they had a great run game, but they were still a shot play offense, okay? I mean, look at their 5 biggest plays. 2nd and 10 is when Barkley gets a 65-yard touchdown. Giants are going to kick themselves. You get a great stop on 1st down. 2nd and 10, you let up a 65-yard touchdown, right? 3rd and 6, of course, to Dotson. 2nd and 26, and you give up a 29-yard run. 1st and 15, and you give up a 26-yard pass. So the Giants are going to look back and say, man, we had them in some pretty unfavorable down and distance scenarios for them, and they still got their shot play. So they're going to kick themselves on that.
A couple things that I want to look forward to. Now you're at the bye week, and here you are, 6-2. You're in second place in the NFC. You're a game behind Green Bay, who you will play next week. So obviously you're in a good spot here. But they do have a couple interesting, I think, things to kind of self-scout and self-evaluate at this thing. What is going to happen with the Dean Campbell situation, snaps? I don't want to say situation. That makes it sound like there's like some friction or something here. But you know what I'm saying. Because Campbell only played 20 snaps. You're going to get Nolan Smith back. You're going to get Brandon Graham back. Azeez Ojulari was not active because he was injured, but I don't know if you want to activate him. Josh Uche played 30-plus snaps in the game, ended up getting a big hit. It caused not a fumble, quote-unquote, but the ball came out of Dart's hands, whatever you want to call that. Mm-hmm. How is Campbell going to have a role in this defense?
That's a great question. Nakobe played 33 snaps in the game, and you said Campbell played 21, right? He
played 21.
Yeah, and some of those were at edge.
Most of them.
And I think what's that?
Probably most of them. I mean,
yeah. I mean, because
he's getting the snaps that he's getting now are as an edge guy, and those are going to probably go away when Nolan comes back, and Brandon's going to have to get snaps somewhere, and Uche's playing 30. So, and if Ojulari's active, which doesn't mean he has to be, but this is going to be very difficult for Vic to figure out unless he just flat out says, Dean's won that job. You're standing next to me.
Well, the thing is, Campbell played edge when the Eagles were in a 5-2 front, and that enables them to have that extra down lineman. And then Nakobe can play off-ball linebacker. But when they're in nickel, I don't think Dean was still the guy in nickel. He may have been on a few, but I think that's still where Campbell goes when they're in a 4-2 looking front, which is where they want to be most often because they want to be, in that nickel alignment. So we'll have to see. I suspect that Vic will continue to play them all and just figure out what down and distances are best for who and when he wants to use Campbell off the ball and when he wants to use him on the ball. Remember, yes, Brandon Graham's coming back. I don't know if he's going to play 35% of the snaps as soon as he gets back. Ojulari, we'll have to see with this. He was inactive for the first 4 weeks. He could go back to being inactive. So, and then there's the trade deadline. it's all unanswerable until we know what the 53 looks like.
5 sacks in the game. You got Nolan Smith coming back. You now have Brandon Graham. Do you reevaluate your necessity for edge and focus on corner?
No, because how many of those sacks came from an edge?
Well, you keep getting them from the inside.
That's my point. Like you know. And by the way, let's be fair. How many of those sacks did Jackson Dart run into? I mean, like, were those sacks because
You're right.
The one Jordan Davis got was because somebody got a pressure and Dart ran right into him. You know?
I'm asking the questions because people will see 5 sacks and think, hey, they got 5 sacks. You're answering in a way to tell those people that those 5 sacks are a little bit more of a mirage than getting 5 sacks.
A little bit. You know, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't get good pressure, but, I mean, Vic still felt like he had to throw a decent amount of sim pressures and blitzes. You know, you got a sack from Carter. You got a sack from Davis. You got a sack from Ojomo. 1 from Hunt, although he probably should have had 2, but he couldn't. You know, he lost his grip on.
I thought Hunt
Bond.
played his best game by far.
Yeah, I thought Taylor's Hunt was pretty good. And now is about the time, you know, halfway through year 2, where the development is going along, and you're hoping he really picks it up over the second half of the season because he has to. He's really their best overall edge rusher.
Well, you figure, by the way, Ojomo had 1, so you had Ojomo, Carter, and Davis all get a sack. So 3 came from tackle. I think Ojomo leads the team in sacks, by the way.
Yes, because he's now finally overtaken Zadarius Smith.
Well, I know he has more than 1.5. Ojomo has.
I'm messing around.
Yeah, he has 4 sacks. So he has 4 sacks. I think that leads the team. But yeah, you got 3 from there. The one Campbell actually had Dart's legs, and Uche took him out. I mean, and caused. But so Campbell got a little bit of pressure. But I do think it's interesting what's going to happen when Nolan comes back. If Hunt starts to get more involved. Now you're not going to know this because you have the bye coming up here. But after this bye, is Nolan Smith, you think, going to be ready to play in Green Bay?
I think they have to get him out on the practice field first and see how he responds. This is a guy coming off the same injury, right? A tweak of the pec that kept him out quite a while after surgery. Not the pec, I'm sorry, the tricep. After surgery on it in the offseason. So, you know, they've got to see how he responds to it. It's not a given that he's back by that Monday night game.
You'll probably have Brandon Graham back out there.
I would think so.
Yeah. I thought another big factor in this game, we shouldn't, because we did hit on it a couple of weeks, was the return game was much better and put them in much better, starting positions.
Huge. I think it's one of the most under-discussed parts of the game so far. And, I've been telling you week by week the Eagles' field position has been a major impediment to their offense, especially their rushing offense or just in general. And Will Shipley gave them 2 really good returns. I think Gibson gave him a 17-yard punt return, if I'm not mistaken. And the Eagles, on both of Shipley's kick returns, which were over 30 yards each, they scored touchdowns on those drives. I can't tell you that that's, A plus B equals C, but I'm pretty confident that there's some cause and effect there.
Pretty confident that A.J. Dillon probably doesn't get a carry the rest of the year.
Not only that, it's something Adam and I talked about on Inside the Birds post-game show. Is his spot on the 53 in jeopardy now that some guys are going to come off IR and maybe some additions in the trade market?
Yeah, I would imagine he has no role if moving forward here. By the way, a big third down play in the game was Darius Cooper drawing that pass interference.
It was. He was out there pretty early as they tried to – he's the only receiver they have, Mike, that you can legitimately call a true backup X to A.J. Brown because he's 202, 203 pounds, 6 foot. Like, he's a big, strong wide receiver. And when without A.J. Brown, they really have a lot of guys who you could say, all right, you're my boundary X, and you're going to get off press coverage if they try to – you don't want Devontae Smith there too many times taking all that punishment, or Johnny Mechie or Jahan Dotson. So it was good to see Cooper out there.
Yeah, I agree. It was Dotson had the 1 catch, 20 reception or 20 pass attempts all day. So it wasn't like they were crazy, but they were very effective there. The run game, they had 275 yards. 250 of them came from Bigsby. Bigsby's second down and 31. That was a big play in the game. He gets the first down on that play, and it ended up being a big deal. So They look like an offense that is obviously ascending. They'll have the bye week, and then the Green Bay Packers, followed by the Lions, then the Cowboys. So it's a stretch here of interesting games with some high-powered offenses. That's all coming up here. Football at 4 will have you covered. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. They'll have plenty of coverage of the Eagles at InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms, and check him out over at PhillyVoice.com. His observations of the Eagles win are up right now. All right, Geoff, we'll talk to you.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.